Okay. Um, I'm happy to kick off. Thank you everybody for jumping on and joining us. I know Daryl has kind of been in direct communication with a lot of you directly. Just to introduce myself, my name is Daniel Bignell. I've been working really closely with Daryl over the last, well, let's say month, 2 months now, in trying to get our game day system ready for Basketball Island and the registration season that's opening up. So we've organized a quick demonstration today just to cover some relatively straightforward topics on the system, what it's going to do, what it looks like, how you can access it, etc. You can see hopefully the agenda on my screen at the minute. So this is just a quick, very, very quick breakdown of some of the items we will go through. Two things I should mention. First of all, and hopefully a lot of you would have received a bit of an area board overview that I put together for Paul McDevitt a couple of weeks ago. He may or may not have shared that. Doesn't matter too much. I'll still share this with Daryl and make sure that it's circulated around. This is just a bit of information over what the system can do and some of the things that we'd like you to use it for. In addition to that, there is some guides and walkthrough uh, information packs that we've been putting together over the past couple of weeks that will really break down the step by step of how to do a lot of the elements that I'm going to cover for you today. So there will be plenty of resource around. We are recording this meeting too. So there should be hopefully plenty of information to share just so everybody can get to grips with it. So I'll run through each of these agenda items. I'm going to stop after each section just to invite any questions. So hopefully I haven't had any issues raised so far just about audio or anything like that. So hopefully everybody's okay. Just so you guys know, and I'll share my screen so you can see it. If you hover over your Google Hangout screen, you'll see these three little options below. This should be read for pretty much all of you because you're all muted. If you want to speak up at the end of each section and ask any questions, feel free to just unmute that and speak to me, and I should be able to hear you. But that should be it. That should be good. So I'll start off at the very top. I'm going to go through just getting access as an administrator. It's just a prerequisite of something that everybody's going to have to do in order to get access to the system. Then I'm just going to show you what the actual system looks like. Okay. Before I jump in, Daryl, is there anything you wanted to add? Or are you happy for me to just get straight into it?
No, I'm happy for you to work away, Daniel.
Great stuff. Okay, so first and foremost, we have our system, which I'm going to be going through on the screen here. This is just a quick look at what a dashboard looks like. In order to get access, so I'm assuming everybody on the call today is going to be getting access to the system. There's a bit of a pre-step that you'll need to do. And again, this will be shared with you all. You're going to need to create what we call a passport account. So again, this will be circulated for you. A passport account is effectively an administrator account that we ask you to create. So you can simply go to our website and go to what we call a passport login. And it looks a little something like this. So you will see, in fact, I might have to do this in incognito just to show you what it looks like. It's brand new for people. So if you go to that website, what you should see is a screen that looks a little bit like this, and it will just ask you to register and create a passport account. Really straightforward. It'll only take you 2 minutes. And then what it will end up looking like is something like this. So this is your passport account. This is a central place where you can access the system depending on what your access level is, and also use it for things like communications, receiving newsletters, either from myself about the product or other types of communications, maybe sent out by the sport. So really, really straightforward. Like I said, this will be shared around with you all. I'd recommend everybody do that as soon as they can, and then we'll organize getting you access, something which I think Daryl is going to lead, and obviously I'll be helping him with. But just as a showcase, once you've got your account and you've been added into the system, you have this little section appear for you. So once you select membership database, you won't have to worry about the 30 icons that I have, because in theory, hopefully you should only have one. But what you can then do is you can jump into one of these and this will take you into the system and look a little something like what you've got on my screen here. So just as a really quick recap, in order to get access, we'll need everybody to create a passport account. We'll show you where to go and what to do in order to get access. And then once the time comes, I'll work with Daryl just to help get everybody added into the appropriate section of the system. Okay. So that's passport and getting access to the system. Really straightforward. I'm going to give you now just a really quick overview of how the system works, what it looks like, and sort of what your access levels look like in relation to everywhere else on the system. So the system is kind of it's got a hierarchical structure. Okay, what I mean by that is think of a standard business or organizational structure. We create this system to try and mirror the operating structure of Basketball Island. So what we mean by that is if you picture an organizational chart or tree, you've got Basketball Island that sit at the very top. Then below that, we've got our area boards. And then below that, we've got the clubs that exist within each of those area board regions. So how that works in practice is we access the system. It looks something like this. So I might be Daryl at this moment in time, accessing the system. And I'm able to navigate my way through different operational areas and down into levels of the system. So just to give you an example here, we'll jump into the Clare area board. And now I'm in the Clare area board section of the system. This is maybe another area where a separate administrator would be added. What that means is the Clare area board administrators would be added in here, and all they would have access to is everything that sits underneath them. So we've got an association, and we've got all the clubs that might belong to them, etc., so on and so forth. If you're added to multiple area boards, you see obviously multiple access points and multiple sets of clubs. If you're only added onto one area board, you won't see anything to do with any other area board information. That's one of the benefits we have of the structure that we've implemented, and one thing that we obviously pride ourselves on in terms of sort of the security and siloing off different areas of the system so they remain only relevant to those that need it. Okay, so as far as it goes with everybody here getting access, you'll obviously create your Passport account, and what Daryl and myself will be doing is making sure that each administrator, as far as area boards are concerned, are added into their appropriate area board within the system so they can see everything that falls beneath them. If I was to give you a further example of what it looks like for a club, if we go into Kilrush Ladies as an example, we jump in here, and now this is a club administrator's dashboard. Okay, so if I was a club and I was being added into the system, I would only get access to my club, and I would see all the information that's relevant to my club. So my members, the teams that belong to me, my registration forms, run my own reports, all simply centered around my club. Okay, so this is where different people get different access and sort of how the system is structured, so to speak. What that does mean for an area board is you can obviously run your own set of reports. So we've got various reports that exist within the system, whether they be competition-based, club-based, contact-based, it might be specific member-based. We've got transfers and obviously financial reporting too. All of that sort of juicy information. There's a lot of powerful reporting tools here and available for you to use. Just another quick tidbit to show you as well in terms of clubs and area board information. There is an important and useful section just around details and contacts. One thing that we kind of ask for, in fact, I'm going to give you a better example because I've already built this section up. Bear with me 2 seconds. We obviously have a test area, which I'll be using predominantly today to show you guys everything. So as I just navigate down here, you can see this is a little bit more padded out now. So we've got information such as the contact information and details of a particular organization. If I just jump into a contacts role as an example here, one thing that we have set up within the system, which is pretty crucial, is a communications and notifications functionality. So each organization, whether that be a club, an area board, or levels above, have what we call contacts. So you can add in a contact for president roles, treasury roles, so on and so forth. We can add in the individuals as required, and we can give them responsibilities. So depending on your function, either at the area board or as a club, we can set that up so that you can be contactable. Hang on 1 second, because I've got someone else joining us. We set that up so you can be contactable as far as reporting goes, and also you get notifications based on what your functional responsibilities may be. For instance, if I was ticked here for registrations, I might get notifications for new registrations either to my club or to me as an area board. Okay, just as a bit of an overview of how that section works. Before I jump in, because the next stage for me really is to go into the registrations component and how that part is going to work. Are there any questions at this moment in time, just around the structure or kind of a brief look at the system so far? I'll just give it a minute in case people want to unmute themselves as well.
Hi, sorry, John Kennedy here. One quick question. Within an area board, can administrators of that be restricted to particular leagues within that area board? So say you've got a male league, a female league, or a senior league and a junior league.
Mm-hmm. If you can be set up and assigned to a particular competition, we can enable a restricted access. We would need to configure that at our end though. So we probably need to look at taking away the rule for particular area boards, let's say, and applying a specific rule to them if we needed to. It's achievable. It would just need a bit of work in order to understand exactly what parts need to be locked down. As a default role, when you will get access, say August, it wouldn't necessarily be in place. Everybody would see pretty much everything that exists. But if we needed to work through with certain area boards what restricted access looks like, we can certainly look at that and help manipulate it for you.
Cool. Thank you.
No problem. Anybody else got any other questions?
Just here.
I think you might have broken up a little bit there. May have accidentally muted yourself.
I did. If you have an area board where you have teams from another area board competing within your leagues, will you be able to access their team registration details?
Good question. So you wouldn't necessarily be able to access their team. What the prerequisite would be, what the requirement would be, is that team has effectively what we call allocated members. So we're kind of getting into the competitions territory here, which I don't want to veer into too much because it's a little bit of a step ahead. We're obviously looking at competitions and we really want to do it, but it's a step ahead at the minute. But to answer your question, first and foremost, if an area board creates a competition and it has a team from another area board to compete in that competition, absolutely, we have a functionality that enables that other team to compete. So for instance, we could have the Dublin men's area board creates a competition, but we have a team from the Clare area board that competes in that competition. We can enable a functionality that would allow you as an area board administrator to add that team in to that competition and manage that team as you see fit. You might then only see members who are assigned to that team, but there will be restrictions on how much information about those individuals you could see and access.
Yeah.
For instance,
okay,
you pretty much see their name and bio pin.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right, thanks.
No problem. Yeah, so I guess just for everybody's knowledge, something that we will be working through is competitions. It's a vastly comprehensive element to the system. It's really exciting for the sport and for all the area boards as well, but just something that we'll be looking at releasing probably as we get into 2021. Any other questions on the access and just a brief overview of the system bits for now? No? Cool. Okay. Just before I jump into registrations, probably something that does bear thinking about would be access to the system as far as clubs go. Area boards is straightforward. Obviously, you have a bit more of a direct line maybe into Daryl. But in terms of how we manage clubs getting access into the system, which obviously they're free to do so, just in terms of how you might want to manage adding them in, whether that falls under, Basketball Ireland's bracket, whether maybe area boards want to take a bit more autonomy and control over that. That's kind of not really my place. I guess the major thing really is just to understand what the process is you want to follow. One other good tidbit, maybe as a piece of information, is just sort of terms and conditions. Something to point out with regards to getting access to these systems, GDPR compliance and all that good stuff. It's always a kind of a good protocol to have a sort of pre-filter. Could you fill in this form to make sure that you agree to the terms and conditions of getting access to the system? So just something to think about. Anyway, I'll get on to now the fun bit, which is all to do with registrations, which I know is going to represent some change for some area boards and some clubs and so on and so forth. So what we are basically doing with this system is we are introducing, let's say, 2 registration forms. Okay, so the first registration form is focused on all of our members, individual members, regardless of their type, whether or not they're table officials, whether or not they're commissioners, players, coaches, etc. Everybody uses the same registration form. And then we have a second form, which is for club registrations. I'm going to take you through today what the process is if I was an individual member registering to Basketball Ireland. I'll quickly take you through what it looks like for those clubs that maybe still register on behalf of their members. And then I'll take you through a quick look at what a club registration form looks like. They're all very similar. but just as a bit of a guide, that's what I'll be walking through right now for you. Okay. So within each organization, you can see on my screen at the minute, we've got a test area board and what we call an association. This is pretty much a key functional area for all of our area board administrators. This is probably where you'll be doing a lot of your work and reporting and so on and so forth. We do have two sort of layers for you. One is regional, one is association, but association is the key bit. Okay, and within association, think of that like a mini database within the system structure. Okay, so each area board is its own little mini database because that's where people are collected. That's where the registration forms are completed and all the players and the information around players exists and sits. And key to that is obviously our registration forms. So like I said, we've got two main registration forms, which from a association dashboard, you can see here, registration forms, and then we have two. Currently, we have the Basketball Island member registration, and then we also have Basketball Island club registration. So I'm going to quickly just showcase first and foremost the member registration form. So I believe what's going to happen ahead of next week is Basketball Island, Daryl and the team will be putting together the links to the registration forms for each specific area board. That's probably a key point that I want to point out to you. Each area board is going to have its own unique registration form URL. Okay, so it's not one general blanket. The key reason for that, like I mentioned to you, is each area board is almost like its own little database. And you need to take a registration form to complete a registration form to fall into a club that obviously exists within your area board, and then obviously fall within that area board itself. So like I said just a second ago, every area board has its own unique registration link. So just make sure that you keep a note of yours. It's not going to change. Just keep a note of yours. I think Daryl and the team will be hosting that up on the website as well, just to make sure that everybody registers to the right place. And a key reason for that too, and obviously something that we are trying to avoid, but it will be difficult to, is just around members and the members that we had on the old system, the old Commortis system. We've performed a data migration, so we've moved a lot of the data and the information from the old system onto the new one. The great thing about that is we should already have a lot of members that are already existing within their clubs, within the right area boards. They should already maintain the same buy pins that they had last year. But the key thing to get right about that is if I was a member, say for Dublin Men's, and I tried to access the Clare area board registration form, I wouldn't be able to re-register for this year because I've selected the wrong registration form. So it's easily remedied. You just need to make sure that you select the right area board, but it's just a key piece of information to be aware of. Okay, so this is me as an individual right now jumping onto a Basketball Island registration form. And this is to our test area board. So this could be any other area board you like. The first distinction we want to make is how many people we might be registering. Obviously, pretty straightforward. I'm just going to go through a one adult scenario right now. But in this instance, many clubs will have parents that register their kids as well as themselves. So the forms enable you to register yourself and multiple people at the same time, which will be crucial for the clubs. So if I just hit continue here, the key thing around how our registration process and forms work is effectively you need to create an account with an email address. And then within that account, you will have member profiles exist within it. So what the first step will be for a lot, and pretty much every member coming into next week, is they're going to need to put in the email address. And we've asked them explicitly throughout the instruction on the front-facing form to please use the email address that they used last season. The reason for that, and I mentioned it to you, because we have this data migration, we have carried over email records too. The good thing about that is as long as the emails sync up and individuals use the same email address, it should then sync up and say, hey, we recognize this individual, this is their buy pin, they can re-register to their old club, same as last year, which is what we want. That's the scenario we want to run into. But like I said, the key bit around the way the system works is you almost create an account with an email address, and then you can add in the member profiles as part of that. So like I said, we provided some instruction at the top of the form, all relatively straightforward. We've tried to provide instruction to those members that were registered last year and what they need to do, which is obviously try to remember the email that they used. If they're a new member, they'll kind of go through an entirely new process and they have a fresh start anyway, which is not too bad. Probably one of the only unique points to be aware of would be the technical members form. So there is a unique scenario with all technical members, those of whom are only technical members, instead of those who might be players. So all of those who are technical members only have a separate form that they can fill in, but we've linked directly to it just to try and help simplify it. The reason why is because we have a dedicated technical members area where those individuals can actually access and register to. But that will be something that will be clearly listed and explained, obviously, on the form and part of our guidance notes too. So I'm going to just log into my form. Now, I'm not going to showcase this for everybody here, but what would happen right now, pretty much for every individual, is as I go through it is, let's actually just show you. If I go to put in an email address that doesn't currently exist, pretty much everybody as of next week is going to go through this process where they have to refresh their account. So they'll pop in an email address. The system will say, hey, we've not met before. Are you new? They select yes. They're going to receive an email from SportsTG/Stack Sports, and it will ask them to create a password and create their account, and it will take them straight back onto this registration form. And I'm hoping what we should have a major case of is once they do that and they've effectively created their account, they will see something that looks like this when they go through. This is for the returning members, I should say. So just log into the form and they should see something like that. Okay. So most members who were registered last year should see a little panel just on the bottom left-hand side, which has their name and their existing buy pin. All of those who are new, they won't see that. And all they'll have to do is select the club. Okay. So this is kind of the next stage of the form. And the key distinction really is whether you're returning, then what you do is you pop into your returning section and then it will give you the club you were registered to last year. Okay, so if you were registered to, well, we'll use Basketball Island Club in 2019, moving into the form for this year, it will recognize that you were a member of that club and it will ask you to re-register there. Transfers is a slightly different kettle of fish, but we'll get into that towards the end of the demonstration. Okay, if I was a new member, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick a list of clubs, and all the clubs, the only clubs that will appear on this drop down are the clubs that exist within your area board. So there shouldn't be any confusion in that sense. So if I'm joining the Dublin men's area board, I should only see, Temple Oak and the rest of the clubs that exist within there. So I'm going to just create a new registration now just to showcase it all for you. So some standard information. Now, a crucial bit that I just want to point out for everybody is registering as. So this should be obviously relatively straightforward, but everybody has the capacity to select what they're registering as for this coming season, whether they are a player and a coach and or team manager, etc. The key bit of information here, though, is to make sure that they tick all the options. So if you are a player and a coach, you need to make sure you select both player and coach. Okay, just a key bit for everybody here to know. One of the main reasons for that is because of the fees that obviously people have to pay. And we have designed the system so that the appropriate fee will only appear. And what I mean by that is if I was to showcase this for you now. So if I say I'm a player and I'm a match official, and I'm just going to hit continue. The key bit that we obviously want to see is, whereas fees are concerned, it should always filter out the highest relevant fee. You can ignore this one for now because it's just a testing one that we'll remove. But we've set it up so that if you're a player and a match official, obviously match officials have the higher fee. Under Basketball Island, the rule is that you should only ever pay a fee once and it should be the highest fee. We've designed the system so that only the highest fee will ever appear based on the member type that you're registering as. So if you're a player and a match official, for instance, you will only see the match official registration fee. If you were just a senior player, you would then see a €22 senior player fee, etc., etc. So just a crucial bit of information to make sure everybody knows. So I popped in here, and what I do is, because I'm an official, we also have what we call conditional fields, which means we ask for your officiating region and then what grade you are. So a key bit here is if I'm an introductory match official, we have designed it so that that fee actually changes too, because obviously introductory referees have a different fee that they have to pay compared to the other graded referees. So we've set that one up to change as well. So if I pop in here, just some generic blanket information. This is where Google always kills me with the autofill. I can be a Manchester-based player over in the Irish leagues. It's not a particularly far commute. Cool. So all the red asterisks obviously are mandatory fields, so they all need to be filled in. For now, I'm just going to select the free fee, but I assure you we'll remove that for next week, so people won't be jumping on and registering for $0. So we've got standard terms and conditions. We've got links to all of the data policies belonging to Basketball Island. And the next stage of this, if I was paying a fee, would be taking me to the payment gateway. But in this scenario, I'm just going to pop through, and what it will give me is a confirmation message just to say thanks for registering, and your registration is now subject to approval. So a key bit to point out, obviously, is all new members require approval before they are automatically accepted. And I'll quickly dive back in just a moment and show you where that is approved from. But this is basically a note to say, thank you, we've registered you to Basketball Island Club. So as an individual member, I guess that's the registration form and how it works. Pretty straightforward. We're hoping that we, for the most part, and I'm pretty sure we will, most people will remember the email address they used last year, and they'll be able to jump onto the form, and they should see their existing name and BIPIN, and they can simply re-register the club that they were registered to last year. Makes it relatively straightforward. And hopefully that form has demonstrated some of the sort of conditional questioning and so on and so forth, which just helps streamline that process. Okay. So I'm just gonna jump in then to quickly show you what it looks like as a club administrator doing that on behalf of members. And I will I'll then stop before I jump into the club form and invite any questions you might have. So the process for club administrators is very, very, very similar, except there's probably a key distinction that they'll want to make, which is how many people are going to register at the beginning. So something that's really key to point out with the system is it's really closely catered towards the individuals taking accountability and registering themselves. Now, there's a lot of reasons for that, mainly because of data integrity, probably a bit of data protection as well. You're always more assured of that given someone registers themselves for themselves and pays for themselves, etc. Also, from I suppose a commercial point of view, it makes a lot more sense for an area board or maybe Basketball Island or a club even to make sure that they can surface their own products onto registration forms directly to a member. So it makes more sense to be able to do that to 30,000 members than it does to 200 people that are registering those 30,000 members, if you see what I mean. So it's a lot more assured from data integrity purposes, so on and so forth. But I do appreciate there will be some clubs that do want to register on behalf of all of their members. So the way that they would do that is if we pop on here and I'm going to register, say, 10 adults. Now, we're assuming at the minute, obviously, a lot of the clubs who do this would probably have used a generic club email to register their various members. That being the case, when they do log in and they go through the process we went through before, they would in theory see a list of players attached to them down the left-hand side. So they would in theory see 10, 15, however many players registered directly to that email address. Now, the bad news for them is that they're going to have to go through and they're going to have to register each of those people individually. That's, again, part of the reason why we basically aim for personal accountability with the members doing this themselves. However, what it does mean is obviously all of those records will have carried over and the club administrators can just get direct access, see all the members that were registered last year and simply just go in and pop in the information required. Now, if I was doing that, obviously I would go through and pay my fees, etc., etc. As I already showcased for you. If I'm registering multiple new people, what you would see is at the top of my screen here is we have basically, if I'm registering multiple adults, I will complete the registration form once. I'm just going to breeze through this for everybody. So we go through here, you can see that that senior player fee has appeared for everybody. Test. Okay, and if I just select that and hit continue, what you would then see, instead of taking me through to confirmation, it would then ask me to pop in adult 2 of 10. Okay, so they can go in and they can create multiple members, and this goes back to what I mentioned to everybody earlier around member profiles existing to an account. If you're registering multiple people under one email address, you can register them all in one go. What it will do is it will then obviously just calculate and accrue the fees owed for each individual, and then ask you and give you the capacity to pay for that at the end. Okay, so as far as a club administrator goes, registering multiple people, like we said, we have the capacity to go in and just re-register all the existing individuals to our club. We just go in, pop in some basic information, and pay those fees. The flip side is if you're adding multiple new members, you go in and you add in the adults, and that will just accrue the fees generated at the end and allow the club to pay at the very end of the process. Okay, I do get the feeling there's going to be a few questions about that. So I'm going to stop there, and I will invite anybody to jump in with any questions they might have on that.
Hi, John Kennedy here. I'll jump in first.
Sure.
Before anybody hits their button. So, assuming that members can remember their email address, or the email address hasn't been entered incorrectly into Commortis the first time round,
Yes.
will the area board administrator be able to go in and correct the email address for the member?
Yeah, good question.
Yeah.
So we do have a couple of functions here. To answer your question simply, yes, I have access to go into a member's profile, as you can see here, and I can edit, and I can change. If I just show all, I can change an email address. So I can go in and I can change that to whatever it might be that I need to change it to. So what would happen then? Obviously, if that player gets in touch with you or a club gets in touch with you about it, you as the area board going, you can change that email address. When that person goes to try again, that then should surface with their name and obviously the BIPIN that they have, so they can re-register. There is another couple of mechanisms that we have put in place. The first one to make you aware of is duplicate prevention. So one of the key ones that I know Daryl and Rory and a few of the guys at Basketball Island have struggled with is duplicate records being created, and maybe that's something that could obviously impact the area boards too. We have a mechanism that if someone tries to register with a different email address but using the same name and same date of birth, the system will prevent them from doing so, because another record exists within the system with the entirely same information. Now, it's very, very, very rare that someone is going to have that same information. Therefore, it's kind of a mechanism we've introduced to stop those duplicate records coming through. In the occasion that someone does creep through, maybe with some slightly tweaked information, the system will still recognize that same information has been populated, and therefore we have what we call a duplicate resolution mechanism, which I'm not sure if I've got an example to show you, unfortunately, or maybe I do. Here we go. Yep, looks a little like this, and area boards will actually see this too. So this will show you the duplicate records that have been generated based on the same information. So these can be fixed effectively. So we can merge them, we can keep the old data, such as old BIPIN, so on and so forth, or we can keep the new data, or we can ignore them. So in order to answer your question, there are kind of three parts to that. We certainly can go in and edit the email addresses when that person has failed to register. If they do try to register with a wrong and different email address, they will be prevented from doing so if the information that has obviously been transferred over is exactly the same, because their record already exists and therefore probably prompts them to get in touch to change the email. And then the third part is any records that do come through that are actually duplicates can be resolved within the system as well.
Grant, I do have another question, but I'll wait to see if anybody else has a question as well.
John. No worries. Anybody else have
Hi.
any questions?
Daniel, Jason here from Cork Ladies Board. Daniel, I have a few. If there's a coach, we'd say in Cork or in Dublin, that's involved in both the men's board and the ladies board, is that covered?
Yeah. So in terms of access, do you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That if they're registering as an individual technical member, can they register for both?
I see what you mean. Well, this should be addressed by being able to register directly to the Basketball Island sort of independent technical members organization. So if you recall from I guess this is something that falls a little bit out of my realm, and maybe we need to clarify a little bit with Daryl here. But I think there's a bit of a notion that if you're a technical member only, you don't necessarily always need to be associated with a club. Now, there's nothing technically stopping you from doing so. So if I was associated with both, I could still do that technically. But I think the lane that we're trying to go down is we have an independent section within the system which allows you as a technical member to register to that only. So you only have to register the once instead of twice, so on and so forth, if that makes sense. If I happen to play, so just to fill in, if I happen to play for maybe one area board and then coach in another, I would be expected to register as a player to the club I play for. There's nothing to suggest we can't add in a record retrospectively to someone to say they're active in another league, but it's not something they could necessarily do themselves.
Okay, yeah. The second one, is there an option for people within, I know you went through the club membership there, but is there an option for people to upload a CSV file?
There is not, no.
No,
No.
nice, no bother.
Yeah.
Can last, the passwords, do they need to be remembered from last year? So is that just the way your account was set up there, or?
No, it would be entirely new. So do you mean if I was a member going onto a form and creating the account, do you mean?
Not creating an account, but reactivating last year's account. So did they require to remember the password from last year?
No. So they won't have to worry about that. Pretty much everybody is going to be almost creating a new account and a new password.
All right, that'll probably answer the next question. So what happens if clubs last year that had registered players all themselves now want to go down the lines of players doing it themselves?
Yeah, so in that instance, it's probably a good point. It's something I don't think there are too many, or at least I'm not too sure. But in that instance, we'll probably have a series of players that need to have their email addresses updated on their records. The reason being for that is obviously their records from Commortis as they've come over would be attached to maybe a generic club email address. So the best port of call would be to update their email addresses within the system, so that when they go to pop in their email address and create a new account, they should then be surfaced with their existing member profile. Does that make sense? So that the passwords from the Commortis system are pretty much irrelevant as far as the system is concerned. The major piece really just sits around email addresses and making sure that they're correct for each member.
Yeah, perfect.
Cool. Anybody else with any questions?
I'll just ask my second question then. Was there any thought, or is there any capability to, when you're registering with Basketball Ireland, that you're also registering with your area board and paying a fee for your area board?
I really like that question. So this is definitely something that's been thought about and spoken about, and obviously it sits with pretty much all of you on the call, I suppose, with how you want to utilize it. So the capacity for you to use the system to attach your own fees is very much there. I'll quickly show you something that we'll be sharing around afterwards. So I've tried to explain this a bit already about how the system is structured, but effectively the registration form everybody's seeing is created by Basketball Ireland. Okay, so they create that at the very top of that structure, and that syndicates, that passes all the way down to every area board in every club. But what it also means is each area board and potentially club can add in elements to that form as well if they wish to. Key bits being probably questions, but also fees. So if you wish to, you can go in as an administrator at an area board, go into the registration form. And if I take the Basketball Ireland one and I go to edit, what I can do is I can add in products. So what I would do is all of the ones you'll see at the minute are all the ones created by Basketball Ireland, so they won't be so relevant to you. But you can go ahead and create area board fees. Okay, so you can go into this section here and you can go into a section called products and you can create your fees. So you'd effectively create your fees and then you would attach them to registration forms. So what would happen in that scenario, if I was a player, if I was a member, I would go into my registration form and I would see my Basketball Ireland fee. And then under a section below, I might then see my area board fee. And then obviously if we went full circle, we would also have clubs, if they wish to utilize that, they could add on their fees to the registration form as well. So I know a lot of clubs operate on a basis where they say charge their members €50, €40. And what that actually encompasses is their Basketball Ireland fee, their club fee, and their area board fee. Whereas this way, it lets the member sort of see that in an itemized registration form, and they can pay one fee all in one go. In addition to how that works, I guess maybe prompt another question would be how that is then obviously split out and divvied up to each organization. So we have what we call payment splits. So effectively, in short, I'm Basketball Ireland. I've created my product up here. I'm an area board and I've created my fee here. I have to add my bank account details to each area. And if I create my product at that same area, anytime that product is purchased, a fee is going to automatically be deducted from a final amount and distributed straight back to that organization. So it kind of takes care of that administrative part for you. So as long as you add in your account details and you create your products and everything gets verified, you can add in your fees, add them onto the form, and have members pay for all of them in one go. That makes sense?
Yeah, that'll be interesting to see how that goes. And must the payment be made all in one go, or can it be kind of called off or
good question.
spread out a number of stages?
Yeah, so there's I guess there's two parts to that. I know as a bit of a rule, we're trying to veer away from the sort of buy now, pay later thing, because nobody on this call right now wants to be sort of chasing payments. So there's kind of two mechanisms. First one is payments pretty much have to be made up front on the form. So the registration, as far as the registration form goes, you make that payment online. You can, obviously, if you wanted to, add in whether it be a free fee, there are kind of functional workarounds we can introduce. We can add in a free product if you wish, and that would assign to someone's record, and you could fill in a payment later if you wish to go down that route. I would obviously recommend against it because of the administrative burden on you. I guess the blanket answer really should be payment should be made up front on the form there and then. The second answer to that is we are actually looking as a business at incorporating a buy now, pay later mechanism. So there are various providers out there. We currently work with and we surface a payment gateway called Braintree, which is a PayPal company. They actually have their own buy now, pay later function. We've been looking at different operators across the market that transact in all of our major currencies. And we're just shortlisting now in order to be able to integrate that into this system. So what it would mean is if I was to go on there as a member, I can either pay my fee up front now, or I have the option as that individual to use a buy now, pay later provider. So if they wanted to take that up, obviously there are various implications there about their own risk and so on and so forth, and we make that abundantly clear. We're still just working through what that looks like. But we will be looking at offering that capability very soon. We work with another major sport in the UK who are pretty keen on rolling out that kind of function. So I would anticipate we have something in place for that towards the latter end of this year.
Oh, thank you.
No problem. Any other?
Just one.
Sure.
Yeah. On the payment end of things, obviously, if you're using an online system, there's going to be a charge. Mm-hmm. What will that be? A flat rate charge or a percentage charge, or how would that be made up?
It's a blanket rate charge. We have a 4% transaction fee on all recorded transactions that go through the gateway.
Okay. That's fine. Thanks.
No problem. Any other questions from anybody just before I jump into the club registration form? Nope. Okay. If anyone's struggling with mute, feel free to figure that bit out and interrupt me. Otherwise, I'll quickly jump on, just in the interest of time. I don't want to take up too much of everybody's evening. I'll show you the club registration form, which will be very quick because it's very, very similar to what I've already shown everyone. So just popping back into our registration forms, I'm going to use this one now, club registration. So like I said, this one is quite straightforward. The major difference really to call out with this form is it's pretty straightforward. It's a blanket fee for every club, every organization that needs to register. Obviously, you can see on the screen we have a different set of instructional information. We've obviously labeled this one typo. We obviously registered this one as a slightly different registration form as well, but the principle is very much the same. We probably guiding club secretaries or club representatives to register partly themselves, but the club as part of this registration process. What I mean by that is the system is pretty catered towards sort of an individual registering. So the idea that you as one individual are going to be registering yourself and information that's required of you. So if I was a club secretary, say in this instance, I would go onto this form and I would be expected to pay my club registration fee. In tandem, I am almost sort of partly registering some of my own information as part of that process. It's just a natural part of the way that the registration forms are constructed, but it meets the purpose that's needed. So we go into the club registration form. It's got the straightforward information. If you're a returning club and member, please pop in. The club secretary should see their own information here if they had a record last year. If not, they just go in and hit new member. I'm just going to go through and show you what a returning club secretary might see. So we've got some pre-populated information there, which is nice and easy. And we'll just go through, and the information is obviously quite straightforward and a bit different on the form. So all it's asking from me here is that I fill in the club name. I pop in a contact email address and a telephone number for the club. And then obviously my own information has just been pulled through from that previous screen. So I'm the club representative. I kind of surrender my information as part of this registration. And then Basketball Ireland are currently obviously asking for some key role name, titles and contact information to be made following obviously COVID, and a key one is obviously Child Protection Officer. So those are all mandatory fields that need to be pre-populated. And as you can see here, this one is a mandatory fee for club registrations. That doesn't need to change, nor will it really. And so that just needs to be completed, and terms and conditions, and then we go through, let's just test, continue, and what this will do is it will take me onto the payment gateway to confirm my payment method, etc. Okay, so not really too dissimilar to the previous form that I showed everybody. The key difference is obviously just making sure that club representatives and club secretaries are aware that they are registering obviously on behalf of that club, but providing that club's information. And then it will obviously be Daryl's task and other administrators' task to go in and just make sure those fees are paid for those clubs and so on and so forth. But that information should be pulled through and obviously reportable on as well. But hopefully we've provided enough sort of information on the forms and the guidance notes to make sure that that's clear enough for everybody. But really, really straightforward form. Okay. If we don't mind, very, very quickly, I'm just going to quickly, I said I would come back to this and show everybody what the function looked like. If you recall me saying when an individual tries to register themselves, it won't automatically approve them. They need to be approved by an administrator. This is kind of what that looks like on my screen at the minute. I've accessed my area board, and my registration that I tried to complete earlier, you can see just here, is basically gone into a pending state, and I need to be approved. So one thing that I would see is, as a member, if I quickly trust everybody not to, in fact, I shouldn't give you the idea, but trust everybody not to screenshot my emails, which I'm about to show you. As an individual member, what I will end up seeing is, internet is killing me a little bit. Sorry, everyone.
You can edit that out of the recording then.
I might try, yeah. I might try. So here we go. So you can see from my screen at the minute that we've got me as the individual who have attempted to register, and I've got this email that's basically come through and said to me, thanks for your request to register to Basketball Ireland Club. Your registration is currently pending approval, and there's a little email for me. Now what will happen is if I just approve that registration as an administrator, and I pop back and wait for my emails to load for another half an hour, I should get, that's instantaneous, that was good. I've got just a confirmation email that's come through. And what that now means is my registration as an individual is active within my club and obviously within my area board. So just a key bit of that process that I just wanted to make sure I covered off with everybody so that they know that that exists. So that's only for new members because obviously they require approval. But I believe that's a function that Daryl and the team will be carrying out as they go in and they approve those registrations. So I did want to cover off transfers for everybody as well. It will probably take us a little bit over 8 o'clock, not too much over it. It's quite straightforward. It's just a bit of a showcase, and we'll probably do another session of training and release some notes on it. But before I get into that, is there any questions that anybody has about the club registration or anything else that they may have thought of so far?
Sorry, just John again. That approval process then, is that going to be for Basketball Ireland, or does that also need to be approved for the area board registration?
It's currently available for, well, technically it's available for both. So you can go in and you can approve a member as both. I think as a function, as a rule at the minute, obviously it's a requirement for Basketball Ireland to be doing that. Is that a process that area boards need to carry out themselves as well?
I can't remember.
I know. I can jump in. I know on the old system that was down to Basketball Ireland admins to jump on when it was a brand new member registered for the first time. We approved or we denied, and the reason was so we could check that a record already exists.
Yeah, that's it.
Grand.
I suppose in theory, yeah, should be somewhat negated by the fact that we've got some measures in place to remove duplicates from registry.
Yeah. And sorry, one last one. Similar to the member registration fees, is there the option for an area board club registration fee?
Yeah, absolutely.
Or team registration fee if you wanted to fleece your club? You know?
Yeah, if you wanted to implement that, same principle exists. You can go into the registration form and add in your own fees to the club registration.
Yeah, grand.
Yeah.
Okay. Continue on.
Yeah, no worries. It's probably does prompt me. This is not something that I've gone through with Daryl and the team. I think mostly because it's not as relevant to those guys. I don't quite know how it works for all of you here as far as area boards go. There is the capacity to generate some of your own forms, and one of those forms is in fact a team registration form. Just see if we've got it. Yeah, here we go. So, like I said, you can create your own forms, and one of them would be a team registration form. So I don't know if for some area boards, perhaps there is an entry fee to competitions. If you wanted to say, if you wanted teams to register themselves, so you have one team representative, I should say, take responsibility for registering them to a particular competition. Once we kind of get into the competitions phase, there is certainly the capacity for you to create and implement those if you wish. So that's where I guess the idea of an entity registering to an organization does exist. And that works quite well for the competition based and obviously team registration based. So you can kind of see a little bit on here just around the additional functions that are available. I won't dive into building registration forms out and stuff now, but yeah, I guess something that might be useful for a lot of you to know if you do want to go down that route. You do have the ability to create forms yourselves and also teams specifically. Okay, so just the final bit, and hopefully I'll do this as quick as I can, hopefully within 10 minutes. So obviously anyone that needs to jump off, feel free to do so. I'm just going to show you through the transfers functionality. Okay, so this is something that I know is quite heavily paper-based, and I think for the first year at least, it seems like Daryl's told me that a lot of it will be kind of handled from his end. Maybe we kind of progress that later on throughout the year. But the system, as I mentioned, from a competition perspective, is very, very comprehensive. We do obviously have a series of other functionalities which we're really excited about kind of releasing as time goes on. We don't want to throw too much into the pool all at once because it can be a bit overwhelming and confusing. So registrations at the minute is the key piece, but naturally as part of registrations is transfers. So I know a question that might crop up would be, I know I was registered to this team last year, but I'm actually moving to this one this year. I need to be transferred, etc. So the system has, as far as I'm concerned, a really functional, comprehensive and solid transfer system. So if I go into basically the principles of how transfers work is a receiving club needs to request the record of a member to come into their club. And the way that the system is designed is there are different layers of approval at each stage of that transfer process. So for instance, what I'll try and do is, in fact, I'll take the registration I just made to the Basketball Ireland Club. I'll find my member record. And I'm going to just try and complete a transfer to the Stack Sports Club, which is in the same area board. So I'm just going to take this buy pin, which is kind of a central piece to how transfers work. Okay, so if I go into Stack Sports Club, who are going to request the record of this player from Basketball Ireland Club. Okay, So Stack Sports Club just goes in, they logs in, their club administrator goes in and says, I want Daniel Bignell as a player because I hear he's a decent center. So I'll go into request transfer. And I can filter through the system and try to find that player, or if I know their buy pin, which hopefully most clubs will, I can simply pop in the buy pin and that will find the record. Okay, so I go in and I request that record, and this is the next step for me. So I go in and I might pop in here, moving house is why he's playing for us, and any additional information you want to pop in, and if you want to add in your own unique reference numbers, etc. So I've got the player, I've got their buy pin, the date of birth, some basic information. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to request that transfer now. What that then does is it triggers notification at a few levels, and I'll showcase it for you right here. So you can see on my screen at the minute, transfer approval details. So we have several layers of approval that are required as part of this transfer process. The first one is Basketball Island Club. That's where the player is currently registered. The next one is going to be the area board who need to approve that transfer. The penultimate stage is the club confirming that, yes, we still want this player. And then the very final stage of that transfer process is the player themselves needs to complete the registration form that I've showed you all and just confirm their registration to the new team. So there's like a member sign off, member permission. So if I just quickly dive over into my other club. Now I am obviously doing this with a all-powerful process of being able to access each club. In theory, you as an area board, you'd be able to do this, but as a club, you would only see what's relevant to you. So if I go in and I go into my members and list online transfers, if I was a contact at this club who had the functional responsibility for transfers, I would get a notification saying, Stack Sports Club have requested this player. You need to go into the system and approve it. Okay. So I'm just going to filter out all of the transfers that have taken place and see the one that's pending. So now I'm a Basketball Island Club administrator. This player is leaving me, and I can see on this section, this transfer is awaiting my approval. So I'm going to go in, and I'm going to say, I approve this transfer. It was approved by me. If I need to, we can obviously change the member email. That sometimes crops up just to make sure that the accurate email for that member exists. And I'm just going to update that record. What that now does is you can see it's approved at the club. Now I'm going to go in as the area board. So I go in as the area board, and I go into list online transfers, and I'm now going to see that this transfer is waiting my approval. So I simply go in and I do the same thing. I approve it, approved by me, and I update that transfer. And then again, penultimate stage, Stack Sports Club. We just want to go in and we want to confirm that we still want to receive that player. So we go in and we approve. Oh, not that would ruin the whole demonstration. We approve that one. And then the final stage, hopefully the internet doesn't kill me again, is I should, as the individual, receive. Yep, you can kind of see those notifications coming through at the minute, saying there's been an update to a transfer, and you now have a transfer request action is required from you. So I've now received an email directly from the system saying you recently requested a clearance to the Stack Sports Club. This request has now been cleared, and you need to click on this registration form. So if I click on that registration form and I log myself in, here we go. Perfect. Information is already displaying for me. Should all be pre-populated because I've probably registered this season. All the information is complete. Perfect. It recognizes that I've already paid and got a product on my record, so I don't need to pay any fees again because I've already paid for them this year. And I hit continue, and my registration. There's a function that I'm not enabled there. That's a good pickup. What would then happen is obviously the final stage of this process. I knew this demonstration was going too smoothly. The final element there would be an approved section by the player who's completed that registration form, and that player would then move fully into the Stack Sports Club. So when that club goes into their member list, they can see that player exists within there. They can now assign them to teams. They can view their information and all the good stuff that you would expect a club to do with their members, and go through the dashboard information, etc., like I've shown everybody before. So in principle, how the transfer process works is like I said, it's a reliance upon the receiving club to initiate it. right now, as it works, obviously there is the power for area boards and also Daryl on the Basketball Island to kind of take care of that process in the background. What would happen though, and I think we'll be going through this next week, is those players would still be receiving an email just to say that, you know, a clearance has been requested on your behalf. You need to just register and make sure you confirm this registration. But you can see from the chain of how the transfer process works. I think by the sounds of it, it covers a lot of the bases that are required from an area board point of view. As far as approval and sign off goes, it just obviously triggers at each stage of the process who needs to sign it off and when. You give your initials and so on and so forth, and that takes care of it. And the final one is obviously the player's approval. One bit that I'm obviously not showcasing, just in case anybody has that question, if I'm obviously a player transferring from one club in one area board to another club in another area board, then it would require approval at both area boards. So the outbound area board would have to approve that, and then the inbound area board would also have to approve that player coming in. So it just adds an additional layer into this transfer process, but it's all there and sort of clearly laid out for you whenever you review it. Okay, and I suppose for maybe those that again might already have a question around national leagues, I'm working through that machinery at the minute as far as national leagues goes, and forgive me, I keep getting these terms wrong, but our link agreements and structured links, I think I got it right maybe. We're working through what those look like for a lot of the clubs, because obviously there are clubs who have agreements with national league teams and so on and so forth. So I suppose for those clubs and area boards that need to know, we'll kind of do the same thing that we're doing today and release a bit of information and do a bit of a showcase for how that works. But we are taking care of it, and obviously those work more as a temporary basis, like a permit, as opposed to a full transfer, which we do offer that capability to do as well. So I think that was around the last 10 minutes. We've run over slightly. More than happy to take any questions that anybody has from the last.
Daniel, Jason here from Cork Ladies Board again. This is kind of more a question for Daryl, I'd say. Daryl, when's the intention of the transfer going live?
So I'm already accepting transfers into the office, but that's what I was saying at the last NABC meeting. I won't be actioning the transfers until the registration system goes live.
No, I mean this actual system. Is the intention for the electronic transfer to go to start at a certain date? Or
I've spoke to Billy about it, and I think it's another meeting that we have to have with Billy and Bernard and co. I think the sooner the better. I think it'll make life easier for everyone.
Alright, because this is just slightly different to the way transfers run at the moment, because there have been players requests and
that'll all be fully discussed before anything is going live like that.
And the last question, Daniel, is there an option for, because normally area boards would know of the transfer because the player would send it to the area board and the area board would send it out to the club. Is there an option when the acquiring club requests a transfer that the area board have knowledge of the state of the transfer during the entire process?
Yeah, you can access that. So at any point in time, you as the area board always have the capacity to pop into list online transfers. So this is me. We're within an area board's dashboard at the minute, and I can go in and view all online transfers that are kind of in action, that are taking place. So I will have full visibility over which ones are taking place. I can filter out specifically as to what stage they're at. So if they're waiting for approval from me, if they've been cancelled, denied, if they're approved, etc., I can filter out by name or club, etc., etc. So you kind of have visibility over everything that's happening beneath you, with all the clubs beneath you.
And we will get notification immediately if a club requests a transfer for a player.
Yeah, so you've each area board has the capacity to add in a contact. So if I just pop into contacts here, if we just assigned ourselves with a transfers and permits notification, you can enable yourself to receive notifications of when transfers have been initiated. Yeah.
Perfect, thanks.
No problem.
I just have a question then. Is there anything that will display for an area board that a team or a club has taken in 3 players and that's their max number of transfers? Will that come up anywhere?
Yeah, that's a question that Dale's run by me as well. Unfortunately, that's kind of a very niche mechanism that we have never come across before. Well, maybe we have, but we don't have a mechanism that can highlight that or automate that process at the minute. It's a bit more of a reliance upon, I guess, a management from the area board. The benefit you do have, obviously, as an area board is you have the ultimate say in progressing transfers. So I suppose as far as you go with access to this system, when you're monitoring your online transfers, you can obviously filter out or sort by the clubs. So if you're recognizing that more than 3 transfers have taken place, you can deny and give your reasons why. But we don't have an automated notification or anything that will populate to say just that, 3 transfers have taken place, so on and so forth.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
No problem. Any other questions from anybody?
Jim Coffey here from the Clare Area Board. Just a quick question. Again, a lot of the information that's available for clubs and their members, etc. Is that available to be exported to Worksheet?
So, do you mean sort of FAQs and guides and walkthroughs and stuff like that?
In particular, registration dates, so that you know when a particular member was registered and whether they were registered before competition.
I see what you mean. Yes. So yeah, absolutely. They have the capacity to report on that. So what they can do.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. So one key thing that they can do, I'll just show you from the area board level. One really powerful thing, I haven't really touched on this too much, mostly because it's a really powerful thing to plug in and play and just see how it works. Your reporting is probably going to become your best friend for tracking that kind of information. All of the data that's collected, including when a player was registered and so on and so forth, what teams they're assigned to, you can absolutely build those reports. And the next best part about that is you can save reports. So I can configure a report to show me whatever information based on whatever fields I need to know. And for future reference, I'm able to run that, and I'm able to save it for future reference. So I can run that each time. So if I wanted to see the registration date of all of my players, I could just go in and have a report prepped and ready for myself to go in and run that whenever I wish. So that information is available. I hope I answered your question.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, absolutely.
Perfect.
Just one more from me. Will the system prune players who haven't played or been registered on your club for 3-4 years?
No. So what would happen there is obviously there would be an existing record attached to a player. An existing club record attached to a player from whenever they were last registered. So if I say registered in 2020 and I didn't play again until say 2024, I would still have, I believe this is how it works. I would still have an attached record to the club I played for in 2020. All it would simply require is obviously a transfer to take place. But as far as a pruning goes, like you say, it won't sort of automatically just refresh that player's record and allow them to register anywhere. In saying that, I would like to just double check that though, because I'm saying that with fair certainty, but there's about 10% of me that isn't entirely certain that will be the case. But I'm pretty certain whatever your last linked record was, you will be attached to that place until you kind of complete a transfer to a new club. Yeah, does that answer your question?
Ish.
No, feel free.
I'm sure.
Clarification can I make just to make sure that that's clear.
Well, you become a free agent and you're not registered after non-playing for 3 seasons, I think it is.
Yeah.
3 consecutive seasons, yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
I think to what potentially could take place is it's a good question to look into, and probably one, Daryl, that maybe we note down and we kind of define a process on in terms of marking a player as active. Like reporting is going to be your best friend for running that kind of stuff. If you have a free agent list, I suppose you might want to run a report to say, when did this player last participate or last register for a club? And if you were to run that report and view that member's record, which you can do directly from a report, maybe make that player inactive at the previous club, so they do sort of almost have a free record. We can certainly look at processes we could implement to kind of build a functional process for you. At the minute, in terms of a generic, if I registered here but didn't play again for 4 years, I don't believe the function exists that you can just register wherever thereafter. Obviously, I hope you can appreciate with certain rules around certain sports, not everything can always be built into these systems. But we can certainly come up with a functional process that would allow you to sort of match that as much as possible. I'm fairly confident we could find something. It just needs us to look at that process and figure out how that's going to work.
Yeah. All right, thanks.
No problem. Any other questions from anybody?
Just one, Daniel. The reports functionality that's available to area boards, is that available to clubs as well at club level?
Yeah. So they'll only be able to see information relevant to their club, but yes, they have reporting available for them. Nearly as comprehensive, but obviously some is not. Any more?
Sorry, just one final question. So obviously the registration system is going to be rolled out this season. Transfers, is there still question marks on whether that'll be rolled out, and also competition, whether that'll be rolled out? Is that correct?
Yeah, so registrations obviously goes live next week. We're pretty confident everything's in place. Transfers is a function that already exists. I'm pretty certain Daryl's going to be using that. So, there's nothing to suggest we couldn't use it relatively soon, because if we're going to be moving records within the system, they need to be transferred. So I guess that one really needs a bit of defining. But yeah, I think it's a due process. Daryl, correct me if I'm wrong. I think it was a next season maybe is kind of a, I don't want to also speak out of line here. I just think I'm not getting anything wrong.
So basically, this season, as you'll all appreciate, moving to a new system, we want to ensure registration was a smooth process, and that we have all the I's dotted and all the T's crossed. Reg comes number one this year. Then we did discuss, Daniel, correct me if I'm wrong, with Bernard and co, that we were looking at moving over the competitions. That's a chat that we still have to have, and I'm hoping we will be having it early in the new year.
Yeah. So just to finish up, the competitions element is it's really exciting. So we've got the bulk of the competition stuff. Again, it should be contained on the pack that I'll make sure everybody is aware of and it's shared with you. If I just navigate my way down, I think I've got some bits in here for you. So we'll have a look at getting registrations sort of done and dusted and fine-tuned. Transfers might be a natural part of that, and that will kind of be an evolving process. Competitions, we'll look at having a conversation about how that works, and it will no doubt heavily involve area boards in terms of training and showing you the different functions that you may or may not want to pick up. But a lot of the functionality, like I've already mentioned, is very comprehensive. Fixture generation and match official allocation, team sheets, so on and so forth. All of that is kind of built in. Another really exciting facet to that is a system we have called Courtside, which is a live scoring app, which is native to tablet devices. So you can actually use that during live competitions and live score based on players who've been assigned to teams and assigned to competitions as well. So there's quite a few elements to it, as I'm sure you can appreciate. We'll sit down, like Daryl has said, when the time is right, probably around Christmas, just after, figure out sort of a plan of action of how we get everybody involved in that conversation. And make sure we go through the proper process of training, educating, showcasing, and so on and so forth. Hopefully, with the capacity to have that function released in for the following season.
Thank you.
No worries. Any other questions from anybody? Sounds like maybe not. Okay, well, hopefully then that was useful for everybody here. Like we've mentioned, we'll share out, I'll pop this over to Daryl, pretty much all the information that I can, and he'll share that out with everybody too. Naturally, there'll probably be some more questions. My email address should be somewhere, I think, on one of these documents, so feel free to reach out to me directly if you have a question. Otherwise, obviously, you can always go to Daryl as well, and we'll do our best to answer those questions. But otherwise, I do appreciate everybody's time, especially this late into the evening. We ran over a little bit, but thanks for your time. Hopefully that was useful. We'll share out all this information, and feel free to ask any further questions that you might have afterwards. Anything you wanted to say there, Daryl, or wrap up with? Or
Just again, thank you everyone for your time. We know you've probably all been working all day, and the last thing you wanted was this, but hopefully this will help now coming into next week once we get registration system going and get the season up and running. Oh, thanks everyone again.
Yeah, thanks folks. Thanks a million. That's great.
Perfect. Thanks everyone.
Thanks very much, guys.
Thanks, Daniel. Thanks, Darryl.
Thank you. Thanks. Bye.
Bye.